Good morning, church.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're getting used to saying that in our kind of largely African congregation. Good morning, church. Amen. Hallelujah. So, last night we reflected on the verses about how God said, "Let light shine out of darkness." In the midst of darkness, His light shines. And this light, this is in the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Christ. This glory of God cunningly disguised in a human person so that we can understand and see the glory of God. So that was where we left it last night. And we want to take it on a little bit. We said that pretty quickly. It took us 20 minutes to say that. So, have we got the reading there? Okay. Anybody like to read it for us?
But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side but not crushed, perplexed but not in despair, persecuted but not abandoned, struck down but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. For we who are alive are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that his life may be revealed in our mortal body. So then, death is at work in us, but life is at work in you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So we're talking this morning about treasure in jars of clay, and I'm going to land on Wes a minute, because he gave the most brilliant illustration this morning in our prayer time, and I think everybody should hear it. So Wes, come on up and tell us about that little clay pot.
It's still at the back there.
Is it still at the back there? Sorry, Wes, but your illustration was so good.
No, I was just saying this morning, many years ago, in our resource centre, the warehouse, the guys... Sorry, excuse me. The guys at the warehouse, they receive all kinds of things, from clothing to furniture to boxes of food, etc. And so obviously we distribute it out to needy people. But sometimes the food goes out of date, or it's given to us actually out of date. So we can't pass it on. And so they have a box on the side that eventually it gets thrown away. Now obviously if it's eatable, the guys, when it comes to lunchtime, just occasionally they'll open a can or whatever. And a pot like this came in, and it wasn't this one, I've got it at home somewhere, but it was Stilton cheese. Anybody like Stilton cheese? I don't know. Well, it was there, and it was out of date, and it had got sort of white paper over tape, so they didn't want to use it really. It was in the dustbin. Not a dustbin, but the bin that was going to be thrown away. And they suddenly said, well, let's have some lunch, and one of the guys said, let's have some cheese. So they got the pot, and they put the pot on the table, and they got some biscuits out and stuff, and they took off it gently, and they was amazed because they took the top off. There was no Stilton cheese, but there were rolls and rolls of £10 notes inside, and there was over £1,000 worth of notes inside the Stilton cheese. So if you've got any Stilton cheese pots in your house, it belongs to Birmingham City Mission.
Oh, I just thought that was fantastic. This pot, I'm not a fan of Stilton cheese. This pot of smelly cheese, but actually inside with £1,000. That's phenomenal. This treasure, and this verse says, Paul says, but we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. Now, many of you remember the story of David when he was chosen as king of Israel. And all his brothers went before him. He was the youngest brother. And all his brothers were these big strapping lads, handsome, powerful, strong. And God said, no, not them, not them, not them. And he come to David. He was a good-looking lad, but he was the youngest. He wasn't the best-looking of all of them. And God said, no, that's the one. And in Samuel we read, man looks on the outward appearance, but God looks on the heart. What's inside is what matters. So here we have this smelly Stilton cheese, but actually there was treasure inside. And they were about to throw that away because of what was on the outside, because they thought, oh, this is out-of-date cheese. But it wasn't. There was treasure inside. And the danger, humanly speaking, is we look on the outside. So this person looks really holy. Wow, they must be a really good Christian. And I've got, I'm really not so good, so yeah, no, maybe I'm not worth anything. But this treasure inside is Jesus inside us, transforming us, changing us, forgiving us, saving us, rescuing us. And that's nothing to do with the clay pot. It's not because we're good enough. It's not because we've got it all right, we've got it all in order. It's because of him, to show that this all-surpassing greatness is from Jesus. So it doesn't really matter that this pot doesn't look great on the outside, because it's what inside is counts. When Jesus was talking to the religious leaders and the Pharisees of his time, everybody thought that they had it right, because they were keeping all the rules, regulations, every single one. They were the ones who stood up to pray in front of everybody. And everyone, wow, they know the Bible or the scriptures really well. They must be really, really holy. But Jesus said something to them. He said, you're like whitewashed tombs. Because you're outside, you look all great, but inside is death. It's like bones inside, corruption. Because you don't actually care about the things of God. You're not actually bothered about real people. You want to just look good. So it's what inside it counts. When I think of us here, and I think we are actually ordinary people. We're not like the most wealthy. We're not the most intelligent. I wonder if you have something where you say, I'm not. I was at the hairdressers yesterday. That's a long story, I'll tell you another time. But I ended up hairdressers yesterday in Chester, because it was halfway between there and here. And this hairdresser, lovely young girl, and she was cutting my hair really well. And she said, oh, I'm not very smart. I was never good at school. I'm not very intelligent. So I ended up here. And I looked at her and said, you ended up here and you're making me feel really good today, because my hair was such a mess and I've got to go and speak tonight and I look a mess and you're making me feel so better. I said, that's a gift. I can't cut hair. We tried in lockdown and it was a great disaster. But she could cut my hair really well. I said, that's a gift. I wonder if you've got some I'm not. If you could feel it, I'm not. I know what Andrew will say. What would you say? I'm not. No, I know, he just said it yesterday.
We had a quiz on my birthday.
We had a quiz on his birthday and they said, what did he want to be when he grew up, when he went taller? Well, think about it. I'm not thin enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not important enough. For me, growing up, it was I'm not good enough. There was a deep sense in my heart, I'm not good enough. And however much I tried, even I've got the best in the exams, I still didn't feel good enough, because inside I didn't feel valuable. And we all say that, I'm not enough. And yet, these Corinthians, Paul said to them, you're not the wise. You're not the most important. You're actually maybe the weak things of this world. You may be the outcast. You may be other people despise you or look down on you. But God chose you. He doesn't choose the actual ones who maybe look good on the outside. God chose you. And he loves you for a reason. And Jesus is enough. Even for all those things that he says, I'm not, Jesus is. Jesus is enough. And his all-surpassing power, this treasure is within us. And so if you are a clay pot with a few cracks and a bit awkward bits and feel a bit broken and not very beautiful in your eyes, yet you are filled with the treasure of Jesus, then you have everything you could possibly need. And that is what's going to transform your life. Even those broken bits, even those that feeling that you're not good enough, or all these things that we put ourselves down and we say these labels on ourselves. And yet God's glory is shown in ordinary jars of clay. And I think that is absolutely fantastic. That God chooses the things and the people that everybody else might discount. Because actually through you, his glory can be shown maybe even more than if you were important and rich and famous. Because his glory shines even through the little cracks and the broken places.
We are made to carry the glory of God. That was why mankind was made, to share in that glory and to carry it. This morning, somebody here in this room asked me a question. I said, "Does anyone ever tell you that you look like Daniel Craig, James Bond?" No. I don't think, I would want to be appearing out of the sea in my swimming trunks, ripped body. No. Danny DeVito, maybe. But, whatever we look on the outside. And my comment was, well, if I look a little bit like Jesus, I'll be happy. Nobody really knows what he looked like physically. But if there's something of Jesus in me, that's what I would love to be likened to. So we're carried and created to carry the glory of God in little vessels. To me, that is the greatest thing, that Jesus, as we said yesterday, he became a man. God became a man and dignified this human frame with all its frailties. And whatever we see ourselves in the world, and you think you're looking good, or you're impressive, or you're intelligent, or whatever, it's all going to pass. And we all know this tent decays and it falls apart. So however good you look today, tomorrow, or down the line, we will all end up, weak, frail. It decays. It goes. So what we live for is something eternal, a glory that is eternal. Just also thinking about this, everything that is of worthwhile, we've been given. It's not ours. Jesus told the parable about the different talents, the 10, the 5, the 1. These were all 3 servants that the master gave to him. And, there's not particularly any reason why he gave one more than the other. But all he said, here, I give you. And when I come back, give me an account what you're doing with it. The 10 and the 5, they went out and invested it and had a return on it. And the master was delighted with them. But the one who only had 1 buried it because he didn't use it. He didn't focus on it, didn't see it as a gift, something that could be an opportunity. If the other ones had failed and had a go at it, I think the master would have still been pleased with them. So when God has given us so much forgiveness, love, grace, his mercy, his kindness, and he's given it to us freely. Why? So that we can benefit from it and we can use it to his glory, to advance his kingdom. That's why he has put it. Freely we have received, so that freely we can give. Just as Jesus freely gave himself so that he could give to us. And it will overflow to others.
And we think of that overflowing, that actually he shines all the brighter the darker it is. You see that little pot there, and it's shining really brightly because it's dark. And that's where the passage goes on to talk about the reality of life. And I'm pretty certain people in this room knows what some of these things we're talking about. He says we're hard pressed on every side, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed. We're not sure what's going on around us. I don't know if you ever look at the news and going, what on earth? The world seems to be going to pot. And maybe like, why is our land doing this, that and the other, and politicians and all this stuff? What is going on? But we're not in despair, because we have a hope that's bigger than the world. We have a hope that's greater than human politics and all the rest of it. We have a hope that ultimately God will rule and reign. That ultimately all things will become good because of Jesus. We're persecuted, but we're not abandoned. Now, to be fair, I have a feeling that in the West we are not persecuted the way others are persecuted. We don't walk through, and having met some people who've gone through horrific suffering and torture, we have got nothing to worry about. But even those little things, the troubles and the difficulties we walk through, we're not abandoned. We're not on our own. Jesus is still walking beside us. Carl was telling me last night about a woman who was sent back to her home to be suffering because she would not deny Jesus. And she was beaten and tortured, but she did not deny Jesus. And she knew that Jesus was right there beside her. Wow, what an incredible testimony. We are struck down, but not destroyed. Now, many of you have suffered illnesses, difficulties, physical ailments, struggles in your bodies, because our bodies are weak and failing, but you're not destroyed. Even if the body dies, you are not destroyed, because in Jesus we have eternal hope. We know our Matthew is with Jesus. Even though his body has died, he is living a bigger and better life than ever before, praising his Jesus. That's because this treasure in this frail little jars of clay, that treasure will last forever. It's eternal. It doesn't fade. It doesn't fail. Whatever happens, whatever we walk through, God's glory shines even more greatly. We're not exempt. Christians are not supposed to go through this life on a happy cloud with nothing going wrong, because then how could anybody see that Jesus makes all the difference in suffering, in hardship, in darkness? His light is shining, and that brings it out. I've just got some examples.
You know, how we respond is very much dependent on who or what fills us. You know, we mentioned a lot that we're dealing with these, not dealing with the wrong word, but we're engaging with these asylum seekers. Ruth popped around to visit one of the centres, and there was a bit of a kerfuffle going on, because there was some in the centre, some Georgians, who had sort of started a protest about the conditions that they were in. And so they'd moved all their belongings out of their room into the corridors, into the foyer, and were demanding that they be rehoused. You know, they were looking at the outside, they were looking at their circumstances and the impact it was having. There was the management that were all arguing with them, and they were adamant. The police, the guards, were called in to try and sort it out. And, you know, what was coming out was just very negative, and I think it reflected badly on them, and I don't think it helped their cause. Certainly they weren't going to get rehoused with that attitude. And it affected, obviously, their management. They were kind of angry and frustrated. But it also affected a number of the ones that we know come to church, because they were saying, we're just grateful that we have a room overhead. It's one room with the whole family stuck in there, and it's tight. It's not exactly ideal, but we're just grateful that we're here and we're out of our situation. They had this attitude of gratitude. And they were sort of thinking, I don't understand why these other ones are so frustrated. Because they were seeing a different attitude. What filled them was different. And that's how it affects us. And the reason we can stand in all these troubles and difficulties, and the only way we can find out is when they're tested. If you've got your jar of smelly cheese, what you think out of date, you would possibly just throw it out. But opening it up and you're finding £1,000 in there, you realize, ooh, my attitude to that jar is very different. And you actually suddenly, that jar that you 1 minute were about to throw away, the next minute becomes, oh, I'm glad I got that. Jackpot. So how you look at things, and if we see our trials and our tribulations, as the Apostle James in his letter, he starts, consider it pure joy and the trials and testings that you're going through. What? That's a pretty revolutionary start, isn't it? And he goes on to say, because they will help you to mature and grow as a person in your knowledge of God. That's how you grow strong. That's how you grow mature. And you can say, bring it on. I consider these joys as a privilege there. In a way, he goes on to almost say it's a gift of God, the trials. If you see that God is in it. If you're willing to acknowledge that God has allowed this for a reason. To shape you, to mature you, to grow you. If we had everything nice in a cotton wool blanket and it was all, you would just get fat and flabby spiritually. But as you're tested, an athlete goes out and rigorously puts their body to the limit to be able to do what they can do. So there's how we think about these things, and the people that we meeting, as Ruth mentioned earlier, we see in them. They have every reason to complain. And yet, many of them are rejoicing. Many of them are seeing positives in the challenges. Because they see Jesus. And for us that perhaps live a fairly privileged life, it's even more remarkable. It's even more amazing. It's even more wonderful. And we see the glory of Jesus. How would I be in their situation? Well, I hope I would have the same attitude, but I don't know. I haven't been in their situation, but I see it. And I see it as I look around each. I see it in what you've gone through. And I get on the little prayer WhatsApp and I see, some of the things that many of you are facing. And I see Jesus sustaining you. It's not easy. It's not simple. And God never said, I'm here to give you an easy life, but I'm here with you. Emmanuel, God with you. I'm in it. I'm there. Paul in Galatians says, I have been crucified with Christ. I no longer live, but the life I live now, I live by faith in the Son of
Who loved me and
Who
gave
loved me.
himself for me.
Isn't that fantastic? I mean, he was facing persecution, difficulties, trials, concerns for the church, all these things. But he said, it's not about me. What matters is Jesus. In the passage in Corinthians, he talks about, we preach Jesus and him crucified. John the Baptist said, I must decrease, and he must increase. And the more we decrease, the more Jesus can be seen. The more we kind of take the glory off ourselves, the more the glory goes to him. And that is one of the things that we are learning. We haven't got it sorted. We haven't got everything organized. We don't have a 10-year plan. We haven't got an idea where we're going at times. But I was reminded talking to Paul last night, and he mentioned, we know there's a big light and a glory ahead of us. But Jesus, in the psalmist, talks about you're a lamp to my feet. In other words, there's enough lamplight to make the next step. And then the next step. And God gives you enough light to make the next step. And that's what it involves, following Jesus. Letting him lead us. Letting him follow us. So, some of you know heard of Jim Elliot? Missionary with a heart towards some of the tribes in Latin America, Southern America. And he wrote, he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. He wrote that as a young man, and not long after that, he died a martyr's death at the hands of the very people he was trying to reach. He did give everything for this tribe, his life. Did he lose? Well, yeah, he lost his life, but what God did as a result of that, in that tribe, and through his testimony that was written by his wife afterwards in 2 great books, he did an amazing amount through that. Through his death, he achieved more by dying to himself, not holding on to life, but giving it. So, as we conclude now, I'm just thinking,
As we have this treasure in jars of clay. We're ordinary people, but filled with the extraordinary, wonderful and glorious reality of Jesus. And that means that whatever we walk through, whatever happens, he's right beside us. And in fact, he can hold us and keep us even in the hardest sufferings and shine through us all the more brightly. And it is the way of the cross. It is the way of dying to self and being resurrected, because that's always Jesus' way. Laying down our lives, but being resurrected, having the life, he says, life is at work here. I've lost the verse. For we who who are alive are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that his life may be revealed in us. And as we finish today, I'm hoping that you will catch a glimpse and that excitement and joy, that this treasure is in you, that as we lay down our lives for Jesus, he raises us up and uses us to shine in the darkness really brightly.
And I would be very, very surprised if there are not people here who are still kind of maybe not sure and undecided about Jesus. And you're kind of thinking, I like what I'm seeing and I like what I'm hearing about Jesus. But am I ready to take that stand? The rich young ruler that came to Jesus, and Jesus sort of said, well, come follow me. Sell everything you got. Go. Money, Jesus. Money, Jesus. And you want to keep your options open. You're not quite sure where you're at. And I think there are maybe some of you have never made a choice yet, clearly to say, yeah, all for Jesus. Now, Jesus isn't forcing, he's not commanding you to do that. He's inviting you to come. There's a little passage, and this to me is just something I would urge you to consider here. Jesus, this is in John, Jesus answered, "My teaching is not my own. It comes from him who sent me. If anyone chooses to do God's will, he will find out whether my teaching comes from God or whether I speak on my own. He who speaks on his own does so to gain honor for himself, but he who works for the honor of the one who sent him is a man of truth. There is nothing false about him." So I would urge you, if you're in that position, try it. Test it. I'm going to walk as Jesus did. And I will test whether what he says is true, whether he is faithful, whether he can be trusted. And I am sure, and I think many others in this room would testify along with me, I'm pretty sure you'll find he is completely trustworthy. And the best way you will not lose when you give what you cannot keep to gain what you cannot lose.
We're just going to pray. I know Paul's got another song and we're going to sing that to close. So let's just pray for a moment. Lord Jesus, we thank you that you don't just choose the good looking and the powerful and the wise and the intelligent, but you choose ordinary people like us. And these ordinary clay pots, you put your treasure inside. And even if we feel we're not good enough, you are enough. You save us, you rescue us, you transform us, and you allow us the privilege of shining for you into the dark world around us. Thank you that whatever happens, we have you. No one can take you away from us. We have a comfort and a hope that is beyond this life. It's eternal and forever. And even if we die with you, we have the hope that we will be raised. Jesus, we thank you. Amen.